Hi, welcome to Engaging Learners in the World Language Classroom. My name is Dorian Brown, and I'm a Spanish teacher at Shelby County Schools in Memphis, Tennessee. So, a good way to get started when we look at engagement is to talk about what engagement really means. According to Merriam-Webster, there are several definitions that we get. The first is being involved in activity, in other words, occupied or busy. Pledged to be married or betrothed. So my puppet says not quite. So funny. And third, greatly interested and committed. So I've put this one here in blue because this is what I'm looking for when I'm looking for my students to be engaged in the classroom. That not only are they just involved in activity or simply busy, but that they are interested in what it is that they are doing, not simply doing the work because it's given to them, but doing the work because they are interested and committed to the goal of learning the language. So my goal for you by the end of this presentation is that hopefully you will be able to see how learner engagement supports your classroom proficiency goals and also learn some ways to help engage learners in your own language classroom. So let's get started, getting your learners talking, moving, and playing. I think it's important when we look at learner engagement is that we look at the setup of the classroom. The classroom sets the stage for instruction, and it can really make a difference, in my humble opinion, as to how learning is done, how instruction is received by the students, and what takes place in general in the classroom. So an engaged classroom starts with the classroom itself. It should be neat. We want it to be inviting. It should be conducive to conversing in the target language. I think if we ask most of our students, I know for me, that at the beginning of the year, kids want to speak the language. That's one of the first things that they say. So we want the classroom to allow them to be able to do that. So this setup, if you look here, I have a picture of my classroom and you can see how it's set up. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But the setup basically allows for two things. The first is quick transitions between activities and also grouping according to proficiency levels. And this coordinates with TEL E4A. I create a stimulating and inviting physical environment that reflects the target language and culture. So if we look here at the picture on the left, we can see that the classroom is set up. There's about 28 desks in there, and they are set up into what I call tables. And each table is set up by proficiency. So at the beginning of the year and then again throughout the year, beginning of different units, for example, I assess the kids to see where they are and how they rate for the proficiency, and then I group them accordingly. So that allows me to be able to differentiate instruction. Students that are performing, that are exceeding expectations, for an example, may receive certain assignments or certain instruction, and other tables that may need more of my assistance are able to receive that. Additionally, if you look on the right, you see a picture of what I call table boxes, and inside these table boxes there are individual whiteboards, it's a dictionary, there are post-it notes for quick access for example, maybe a quick exit ticket. There are also response cards, there are sets of crayons, just basically general things that we use on a regular basis and keeps me from having to redistribute those all the time. So the kids themselves are in charge for making sure that they have that material, and it's easy for them because it's right there and it's ready to go. So other things in my classroom, if you look on the left, I have all of my students we do interactive notebooks in my class, and each class period has a box for their journals inside, and those journals we use it's kind of like creating their textbook as we go in the classroom. So their notes are in there, vocab, activities, and it's always there. Of course, they're welcome to take it home if they need to for, if they want to study something extra or do something like that, but they are in the classroom. And that's one of the carts. There are 2 carts, and that's a picture of one of the carts. Another thing that's helpful with the setting up our classroom for engagement is to make sure that our walls are useful. And I know sometimes it's easy to just want to put all kinds of, pretty things and things on the walls, but we want to make sure that they're also there for the kids to use. So especially important in my classroom are to make sure that kids have what they need to stay in the target language. So in that picture in the bottom right corner of your screen, you see there's one with a big question mark, which has different phrases that they might need in the classroom. Like, for example, I don't understand this, or how do you say this in Spanish? Another chart that has question words on there, so if they need to ask a question, they know how to, those words are there. And of course, it also helps them learn it because they're there, they know that they're there if they forget. And eventually, a lot of them don't even need the chart. I also have the wall that you're looking at there has the proficiency kind of just a little diagram I put together there that goes from novice, intermediate, and advanced, so that they can always keep that in front of their mind and know, just have that to think about as they're doing different activities. And it's just a reminder because we talk about it a lot, but it's good to have it there visually for them to see how the proficiency scale grows. Okay, so we can begin now that we've talked about the classroom setup. So our first thing we want to look at is let them talk. So I've mentioned before that most kids want to be able to speak in the language. They're not simply taking the class to be able to maybe just read a magazine or a book here and there. They want to be able to communicate. So we want to allow them to be able to do that in the classroom. So here you can see this aligns with TEL LE 5A and 5D. So Salida here says that that's the most difficult skill to learn, and I am aware of that, and I know that that can be a bit intimidating. However, we want to do the best we can to keep them engaged and motivated and let them know that it is possible. So here are a few ideas to help get your students talking. So the best way to become a better speaker is to just keep practicing and speaking and making sure that we're teaching them in a way from the very beginning of the year toward the end that allows them to keep getting better and better and better and move from just understanding what we're saying to being able to say a couple of words, to being able to say sentences, then link and string those sentences together, and eventually being able to narrate across all time frames. So here, let's talk about a couple of ideas. Here's my first idea that I use in the classroom. This is the spontaneous speaking bucket, which I know has a long, a long phrase or a long title, but it's simply just it's not anything I had to buy. It was going in the trash. It was filled with animal crackers, and now it's the spontaneous speaking bucket. But basically what I have inside, I just have slips of paper, and I have written different situations there. And what happens is a group, I'll call on a group, I'll usually maybe pull a name or pull a number for a group. They come and they select the topic out of the bucket. Then they have 2 minutes to prepare, because it's not really prepare, but it's more so just to get your thoughts together. They can go outside of the room, then they come back in and they have to present or put on a performance, if you will, of this situation. And it's a lot of fun. And there are different cards in there. Of course, they vary according to the level that you're teaching. But the kids really enjoy it. It causes them to be ready, right? Because we never know when the spontaneous speaking bucket is going to come out. So it causes them to be ready and being able to speak spontaneously. And this also goes toward we talk in and when we talk about the different modes of communication, this one would go with presentational. Of course, we have presentational, interpersonal, and interpretive modes of communication for our students. This would go along with presentational speaking. Okay, so for the interpersonal speaking mode, I have conversation boxes, and these are just, I've heard them called clear shoe boxes, but so they're about that size of a shoe box, and they just have different topics in here and a timer. And so you may use this as a center, like a learning station, or you may use it if a group has extra free time, or it may be what you do for the entire day at class, you know, if you have as one of your activities for the class. But basically, they get the box, they select a topic without looking, supposed to do it without looking, and then they set the timer for 2 minutes, and they have to talk about that topic for 2 minutes, whatever they want to say. They ask and answer questions, they tell them about experiences. And what's great about these topics is that the responses that you will hear from the students, of course, it'll vary based on the level. So someone in a Spanish 3 class, for example, or a French 3 or whatever, if they pull out movie theater, how they handle the situation should be different than maybe your level 1 student talking about the movie theater. So the Spanish 3 student, you know, you'll probably hear them talk about a movie they went to, or tell me about a movie you saw, and they may be able to tell you in past tense about the movie. So it just allows for just, again, examples of spontaneous speaking to take place. Okay, so then we have these chairs. These chairs were donated to me, and then my daughter and I got some fabric that was on clearance, and we covered these chairs, and so now they're just another prop in our classroom. A lot of this, when we do like the spontaneous speaking bucket, for example, or if we have anytime where kids are coming up to do something, like maybe they're doing a talk show host, sometimes that's an activity we do, and somebody will practice interviewing somebody else. So there's just another setup in the classroom to allow students to be able to talk to each other in a different way, other than just sitting in a desk. Okay, so also you may want to, you find that you want to randomize a little bit of your speaking activities. So on the left side here, the large blue ball with the green on it is, I use that for ball toss. So if your class is small enough, and depending on your class, you can actually have kids toss the ball. We will sometimes just form a really big circle, and it seems impossible. You may be thinking, you know, with 28 to 30 kids, but you know, you can do it. It can be done. So we may, for example, get in a big circle, and I may call out a topic, maybe the house, and kids just pass the ball from one person to the next, and you have to say a word for the that's related to that topic. You can also do it by doing English and Spanish, like saying the house, and the other, you throw it to somebody, they have to give the Spanish word. Or you can do it just all kinds of ways. You can do it in opposites, you can do adjectives, however you want to do it. It's just another practice for vocab. You can do questions and answers if you'd like. The little ball is Lulu. That's kind of an accountability ball. So as the students are talking at their tables, the goal is to try to keep Lulu at your table. As long as you're in Spanish, she stays. If you go into English, then another table has the opportunity, or the teacher can take that from you and then give it to a different table. So, and then at the end, of course, you can have some type of incentive, you know, for keeping the Lulu on your table the whole time, or ending up with her at the end of the class period. That's completely up to you and your class. On the right side, you see pull sticks. So I've heard them be called equity sticks, but it's basically just, I have a fancy version there. You see that's a commercial version that I received, but I also just have them by class period. You can see the other cups, and on each stick is every student's name, and so when it's time to call on students to answer questions or whatever, then I'll just pull that out. So pull the name out, and that takes takes out any, maybe from calling on the same student over and over again, for example, or things like that. So it just helps to randomize the process. All right, so the next topic is letting the students move. And believe me, I totally understand that it can be intimidating to think about allowing 30, and of course I've, had up to 35 kids, and I've actually dealt with even more kids than that in a classroom. And it can be intimidating. You've got the students, you've got all these desks. How do I allow these kids to move and still keep the class under control? But having the students being able to move in class can help blood and oxygen flow to the brain, help them increase engagement. So let's look at a few ideas. Okay, so the first one on the left-hand side is interactive writing, or writing around the room, I call it sometimes. So basically what you see there on the white sheets where you see the writing in marker, those are topics, and then the kids will spend, I may have one topic, a piece of paper like that, and a prompt or a topic at the top, place different places around the room, maybe at different tables or on the counter, on the walls, wherever. And the students will move in their groups, and they may spend, I may set the timer for, I don't know, 3 minutes or so at each one, and they all write there, and I'll give them a level. This has to be at least intermediate 1 level, or I2, or whatever. And they will write their response to whatever the topic is. And then when the timer goes off, we rotate and then go to the next topic. And that works really well. I do make them put their name, they have to put their name, and then I can go back and take a look at what the students wrote. Another example is on the right side, class sentence building. So here, depending on whatever the topic is, this looks like a set from when we were talking about our weekend or future plans. And sometimes that can be a difficult topic. It's getting some of the sentence structures correct, and just to give them a way to move about in the classroom, but also giving them the opportunity to see the structure of the language. So I'll have stacks of maybe subjects, stacks of places, stacks of verbs, stacks of conjugated verbs, stacks of times, and each table will receive a different stack, and I'll simply call out a sentence in English, and they'll have to form the sentence. They'll send a person up from each group up to the front of the room, and we physically form a sentence in front of the class. So that's a lot of fun, and it causes all of the students, of course, to be engaged in that. Okay, here are a few more ideas for letting them move. So at the top left, you see the folders that I use for learning stations, and sometimes you may hear them called learning centers, but basically this is where you have several different activities taking place in your classroom, and students spend a certain amount of time at each station or center, and then they rotate. It's typically done, where the students themselves rotate from center to center or place to place in the classroom. But if you aren't comfortable with that, or not sure you want students moving around, and then some days the kids will tell you, I don't feel like moving, then you can, of course, rotate the folders, and that works, of course, just as well. The other pictures up here are just examples of different center activities. So we have a set of dice down here at the bottom left, where you just write different things. It depends on whatever topic you want, and they roll those. Maybe you have them make sentences with them. On the top right side, those are just plastic clear covers, and you can slide pictures in there. You can slide articles. You can slide a variety of things inside of those, and students may have to write about them or talk about them. On the bottom right, that's an example of Pictionary in the station. Of course, Pictionary you can do whole group, but it can also be a good center activity where they pull certain vocab or things from the box, and they have to draw it, and the team guesses. But there's just so many different activities that you can put into the learning stations. But the point is that it's the idea of movement that comes with the learning stations and the rotations that helps students be engaged. Okay, some other ideas for you. On the left side there, you see I have clipboards, and this is great for if you're doing surveys within your classroom, any type of mingling activity where you have the students walking around. And so this way, as they're going around, they can actually still clip their notebook or paper or something to that, and they can still write. And it's always fun to see. I mean, they really do love clipboards. I think it makes them feel official or something, especially when we're doing things like surveys. So that's a little tip. So on the last topic is let them play. This is a lot of fun. I enjoy the games. I enjoy having the students have a good time in the classroom, and I think it's important for me too. Like I tell them, if I'm not having fun, then I know you all aren't having fun. So I try my best to incorporate and let it be a fun place, but fun with learning. So what's great about some games is that kids think that they're doing a game, but they're really using a lot of really good higher order thinking skills with these games. They can help reduce the pressure of language production, it takes some of the stress off, and it helps the learner feel comfortable with taking risk. So let's look at a couple of ideas. So on the left side, you see what I call, well, on both sides really. On the left side, it's stacked. You can see one opened on the right. But these are what I call just prop boxes. These are great for having on hand for skits, the spontaneous speaking bucket, role plays, things of that nature that help the students get into the role, whatever the role is. So they enjoy those. But not only for the students with the playing, but they also become props for the instruction, right? I mean, if you're talking about family celebrations and eating around the table, it makes things a lot more clear if you actually have a physical cup or a physical apple in front of you. So we use those things a lot in the classroom. And we also literally play games. So these are a few games that I have in the classroom. They're ideal for increasing proficiency and building vocabulary. And it's also great interpersonal skills, right? Because when you're playing games, you're talking to each other. You're saying, whose turn is it? It's your turn. Oh no, oh I lost, or oh no, he got me. So there is a sense of conversation that takes place with games anyway. So this is I have Scrabble here, I have Guess Who in Spanish, Monopoly in Spanish, but you don't have to even spend money on games. There are lots of other things that you can just turn into games. For example, we like to do what I call dialogue shuffle, where I will type out a dialogue and then cut it into strips, and the students they get a bag of those strips and they have to put the conversation back in order. Sometimes I turn that activity even to a more physical game, where I take a conversation and I cut it up and I stick the lines of the dialogue outside of the classroom, and each group has a runner, and the runner has to go out and memorize the line and come back in, and they have to write the line down in their group, and then they, as a group, once they get all the lines, and they have to rearrange them back in order and make sure it's a conversation. Another simple game is just a board race, where you either ask a question or give give a sentence or something in English, and the kids have to run up, against each other and see who can give you the answer the fastest. These are lots of things that you can do that are simple, but that the kids will enjoy. And don't be afraid of a little bit of noise, as long as it's productive noise. So that's a lot of fun. Okay, and finally, you've seen this puppet throughout. This is Celita. I was moving some stuff around in a closet. A student saw this puppet and got super excited. Um, as I'd had her for a little while, but I was like, oh, I don't know. These are high school students. I don't know. Don't do the puppet. But they caught me with my puppet, and they loved the puppet. She appears when we have story time or just whenever somebody wants to bring Salita out. And yeah, so it's it's turned into a very fun addition into the classroom. And they, somebody might have Salita for a day, and just when you call on that student, Salita's the one that's talking. So hey, as long as someone's talking right in the target language, that works out. So I hope that now you are familiar with ways to engage your language learners in an effort to support your proficiency goals. Now you can go and get your learners talking, moving, and playing. If you have questions, please feel free to email me at profesorabrown@gmail.com.